Welcome, everyone. Folks are continuing to trickle in. That's great. Sorry about the surprise extra registration step that you probably had to complete, but I'm glad you've made your way here. My name is Ann Carter Mulligan. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the Batten School. I really appreciate all of you attending tonight. I also really wish we could welcome you to grounds and to Garrett Hall, which you see on this slide. But hopefully you will attend UVA and you'll have many, many more opportunities to visit us once you're on grounds. I guess the silver lining is you've probably been able to get a lot more information through this virtual series that you might have been able to in a single visit. So I'll take that as a win. So you're in a good spot to make a truly informed and considered choice, which is great. Here is the agenda for this evening. I'm going to share a short video from our dean and a couple slides to introduce you to the school. We'll then shift into Q&A with some of our spectacular students. I do want to let you know up top, we are recording this evening's session for our archive. We can take your questions at any time, however, in the Q&A box. Feel free to drop those in and we'll turn to them later in the session. So to begin, I'm really excited that you're considering coming to the University of Virginia. The Batten School is an upper school, meaning you would join one of our programs in either your third or your fourth year. Our programs are application-based, so they are competitive. Before I cue up the video with our dean, Ian Solomon, to talk a little bit more about our mission and our vision, I want to make sure we're all on the same page when I say Frank Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy. Policy is not politics. Policy encompasses the actions that a government or other actors will take to address an issue or a problem for the benefit of citizens in society. So that can be through the formulation of law, rule, regulations, other actions. So at its most basic level, Batten really aims to educate and train the next generation of policy leaders. But we feel like that we do it in a very unique way, which I will leave to our dean to describe to you.
I am Ian Solomon, Dean of the Frank Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy at the University of Virginia. Across the country and around the world, we find ourselves in a time of extraordinary challenge. It's a crucible of character and courage, a training boot camp in building resilience, perseverance, and adaptability. Some of us are struggling with overwhelming personal circumstances, difficult economic conditions, health problems, or myriad social and emotional wounds. My heart is with you. We face a profound time of division and national upheaval. It pains me to see our American tapestry tearing apart amid these challenges rather than knitting together. Back in 2007, the late Frank Batten Sr. said, "Never has there been a greater need for enlightened and ethical leaders prepared for public life in their communities, in their professions, in the world at large." That observation is even more true today. We need to meet this moment, now, here. And that's no small feat. But I am confident that we can rise to this challenge as we have in the past. That confidence stems from the work we are doing every day here at the Batten School. We are developing the type of policy leaders that the world needs right now. Ethical, passionate, empathetic, curious, humble, committed to serving the greater good. We are doing that with a unique approach that infuses leadership with policy and policy with leadership. Our work is as timely as it is vital. We believe that leadership is built on hope, on a positive vision for the future, on a belief that we can make tomorrow better than today. That is our mission. That is our charge. And that is our promise to you. My dad often told me that the best way to predict the future is to create it. As you consider your path forward, seize the opportunity to be the artist of your life, the author of your own story. The world yearns for your moral courage and your ability to thrive in a rapidly changing environment and to lead diverse communities. If you share the passion and commitment that I have, that our students have, that our faculty, alumni, and staff have, to developing the kind of people and ideas that will strengthen our democracy and solve humanity's toughest challenges, then I encourage you, join us at the Batten School. We welcome you into our community of purpose and action.
I find that video to be so inspirational. I think Dean Solomon does a really nice job explaining what makes Batten so special and really so critical in this historic moment. Part of what makes us unique, as he said, is our vision. So our dual focus on policy and leadership. So at Batten, you'll receive best-in-class knowledge about policy, access to cutting-edge research, and you'll build skills in data analysis, but will also help you start to cultivate your leadership portfolio. And that includes things like how to analyze group behavior, how to negotiate and navigate conflict, how to be an effective communicator and critical thinker. So at Batten, we really want you to be able to move beyond theory to identify policy solutions and effectively lead to implement them. So we equip students to meet challenges and really become change agents. As a result, our students are very deeply engaged, both in and outside the classroom, during their time at UVA and after they graduate. We are also small by design. So as one of UVA's smaller schools, our emphasis is on building a really strong cohort model where your connections to your classmates, to your faculty, and to support staff all really help you thrive and grow. We have a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio. The accessibility of our faculty is one of the school's most highly rated features. There is also a great deal of individualized support from your peers and from support staff. So that's from the admissions team through the application process to a dedicated academic advisor to our career services team, which helps you find internships and employment. We think it's really important to build that Batten network because you'll continue to lean on it after you graduate to achieve your professional goals and also use it to give back to the next generation of policy leaders. We are interdisciplinary in nature. So you probably have heard by now that UVA has a number of interdisciplinary majors and a number of majors that really touch on policy. Ours looks at the ways that social psychology, economics, history, politics, ethics, and other fields, law, all intersect and shape policy. Just as importantly, we have faculty with very diverse backgrounds as both scholars and practitioners in the domestic and global spheres. So they are well versed both in thinking about and doing real policy work. Our dean, Ian Solomon, was in the Obama administration. We have a former UN staff, World Bank staff. Another faculty member was in Congress and was a high-ranking US Army and Department of Defense official. So all those folks bring their experience to bear in the classroom. As a result, that classroom is very interactive, it's very hands-on and collaborative. The focus is really on experiential and applied learning. We are a professional school, so our degrees, our academic programs are very pragmatic and they are intended to equip you for the real world. When you leave Batten, you should have strong analytical skills. You will know how to write and design and execute a policy project. You will be a proficient public speaker and a problem solver. All really good preparation for a variety of different careers. So those programs, we have 3 programs open to undergraduates at the university. We have a major and a minor in public policy and leadership, and we have an accelerated Master of Public Policy, the MPP. I should mention that we also have a traditional 2-year postgraduate MPP. So if you end up going somewhere else for college, you can always come back to UVA and the Batten School for your graduate studies. I will talk about our programs ranging from a lot of policy down to a little bit. So that accelerated MPP is really the deep dive. You major in something else. You begin taking Batten courses while finishing your undergraduate degree. You graduate with that degree. You will do a summer internship as part of the program, and then the 5th and final year is all graduate work. You will take courses in behavioral economics, social psychology, research methods and data analysis, and then also discrete policy areas that you are interested in. The focus is really on the application of knowledge. So your culminating project is an applied policy project where you work as a consultant with a client to solve a real world issue. It is a rigorous graduate degree. It is very quantitative. It's for students who want to directly influence the policy sphere in some fashion. We also have an undergraduate major. It includes coursework in foundations of public policy and leadership, economic analysis, multidisciplinary context, and special topics, which are our electives, and again, those policy courses that you can start to get to know a little bit better. If you think about the accelerated degree as an immersive deep dive, this is more of a generalist curriculum. We sometimes call it a liberal arts plus look at policy. And the intent is really that you end up being a good consumer of information, a savvy user of data, and have some policy knowledge. You can also pick up a minor, so that's a good way to supplement your primary major in another school with some policy and leadership. The goal there is to be able to begin to bridge the gaps in terms of your main area of study and the ways that it intersects with policy. Our faculty also conduct cutting edge research, studying everything from what organizational, social, and psychological factors influence decision making to improving education and workforce outcomes, to measuring Congress's efficiency and holding Congress accountable, to working with the DoD directly on foreign policy. We also have a gaming and simulation research center that runs simulations of policy decisions applied to situations like, for example, global pandemics. We also have a social entrepreneurship research center, and UVA also has a social entrepreneurship minor. So if you are interested in that, it's an interdisciplinary program that really prepares students for work within nonprofits or social impact driven for-profits, in philanthropy, impact investing, that kind of world. So students from both inside and outside of Batten can engage with this work in any of our centers and work with our faculty to help conduct their research. All right, a little bit about professional outcomes. Why go this route? Among other reasons I've mentioned, we've got really, really wonderful employment numbers. This is data from the class of 2018. Class of 2019 data is virtually identical. We simply lack a fancy graphic for it at this point. But the bottom line is this shows that 98% of our students are employed within 6 months of graduation, which is very high among our peers and among other UVA programs as well. You'll see here that many of our grads go into consulting, both for the private sector and the government, which really reflects the kind of broad foundation you receive in critical thinking and project management. They really lend themselves to that field. Our grads also enter direct government service, the business world, nonprofits, research institutions and think tanks, the service organizations like Peace Corps, Teach for America, as well as grad school. Particularly law school is a very common destination for our undergraduates. The top destination is obviously Capitol Hill in DC, but we have grads working on Wall Street. We have grads on the West Coast working in the tech sector, grads working abroad in global policy. The bottom line is there's a really big cross-section of industry and government and public service represented. There is a really wide variety of outcomes because Batten students have very wide and varied interests. And the preparation they receive lends itself to lots of different types of careers. All right, this is shifting gears a little bit to give you a little bit of information about admissions and applications. If you are following the kind of traditional timeline, you apply spring second year for the major or the minor, spring third year for the accelerated program. It is possible to enter our programs on an expedited timeline if you say bring in lots of AP and dual enrollment credits into UVA. I'm happy to answer questions about that later if anybody has any. So you apply in the spring, you begin the following fall. Prior to that fall, you complete just 2 prerequisite courses, different depending on the program. Microeconomics is a prereq for all of our programs, and it's just a solid course to plan to take pretty early in your academic career because it is a prereq for lots of different majors at UVA. For the BA and minor, you also take social psychology. For the accelerated MPP, you will have to take a calculus-based math course, or the AP equivalence, or transfer credit is accepted as well. Our programs are very competitive, so we intentionally keep our numbers quite small. There are 80 or 90 seats in each BA cohort and 90 seats in the Master of Public Policy. Only half of those are the type of students that I've been talking about in that accelerated track. Half are traditional 2-year postgraduate candidates. So here is our contact information. You can certainly visit our website to learn more, or feel free to email us at the address you see here. I am excited now to shift gears. This is the part I'm sure you're more interested to hear about, is hearing directly from some of our students about their experience at UVA. So I will kick things to my colleague, Courtney Leisten-Snyder, who is our Assistant Director of Admissions, to help facilitate that Q&A.
Thanks, Anne. As she mentioned, this truly is the best part of the presentation. I know when I was going through the college search process many, many moons ago, hearing from the students is really what sold me on my undergraduate institution. So please ask them any and all questions. As a reminder, you can put those questions in the Q&A. We actually have a few coming through already, which is really exciting. But I want to first turn to our students. We have 3 amazing students on our panel tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell the audience members where you're from, what you've been involved with on grounds typically, as well as maybe your policy areas of interest, as well as a possible career after graduation. We'll start with Ben and then go to Amanda and Abby, work our way down in seniority.
Cool, thanks Courtney. Hello everyone, my name is Ben Dooley. I am a current second year in the Accelerated Master's program, so I came here for undergrad as well, and graduated virtually last spring. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and here I am now in Charlottesville. What else was in the question? So my area of interest for policy is foreign policy, national security policy, international policy, and talked a little bit about the applied policy project. I'm working with UNICEF on mine, which is really cool. Career interests is that same area. I think the State Department might hopefully be where I end up. We'll see about that. Fingers crossed. And last thing is what I did at UVA. So some things I was involved in. I am on student council leadership here. I was a member of First Year Players, which is a student theater organization. And I was also in the Cavalier Marching Band and the trombone section, which is the best section in the Cavalier Marching Band. And yeah, those are just some of the things. So pass it to Amanda.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Bisnath. I'm a 4th year in the bachelor's program, and I'm originally from Loudoun County, Virginia. I am hugely interested in healthcare policy, which is a little ironic right now, but a great time to be studying it. On grounds, I also participate in the marching band with Ben, and he's wrong, the clarinet section is the best. I also participate in a student service organization on grounds called APO. We're co-ed and we do a lot of service projects around Charlottesville, and it's a great way to get to know people and kind of escape the UVA bubble a bit. Let's see, after college, I'm thinking of working at a think tank. I really love policy writing. And after that, I'm one of the big chunk of students that wants to go to law school and hopefully also study public health.
Hi, I'm Abby Keats. I'm a 3rd year, so I'm a 1st year in the bachelor's program. I'm from Newport News, Virginia, and I'm also minoring in American Sign Language and Deaf Culture, which I'm really passionate about. So much so that I actually, well, I don't now because I'm at home this semester, but normally I would live in the Shea House, which is our language immersion house on grounds. So I really love that. If you have any questions about that, I can try my best to answer any. Outside of that, I work at the Career Center, or normally do. I'm in 2 research labs. So one of them is in the Batten School, so Applied Public Policy and Leadership with Professor Adams. And then I'm also in a leadership development one in the Darden School, which is our business school. After college, I really don't know. I think my policy areas of interest so far are like social, human justice, like reform, things like that, or education, healthcare. I don't know. I just started, so I'm still kind of feeling my way through certain policy areas. Maybe thinking about public health for grad school, but I really don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah, you've got some time, Abby, but in that time, are you sure you don't want to join the marching band?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I did choir in school. I don't do instruments.
Okay, fair enough.
Absolutely. Well, you can see all of our students come from very different backgrounds, have very different interests. So their answer to the next question is probably going to be very different. What has been maybe your favorite Batten class that you've taken thus far? Or UVA class too, if something really stuck.
I can say my favorite Batten one because I've only taken a few. Outside of like the required classes last semester, I took Global Humanitarian Crisis Response with Professor Gelsdorf, and I know everyone talks about how much they love that class. It was just was a really good insight into humanitarian crises across the world and like, you know, the different partners and organizations that, you know, are responsible, the government's role in helping out people and things like that. So I just thought it was a really good class to learn about, you know, outside global events and like how they're responded to.
Yeah, Professor Gelsdorf is one of the best. At UVA, I still maintain that my favorite class was my first year writing requirement class, which was writing about television, something I never ever did and haven't really done since, but was an amazing class. And we didn't have a final essay, we had a final video, so that might have been part of it. My favorite Batten class, I would probably have to go with Congress 101 with Professor Jerry Warburg, who used to work in Congress, wrote some major bills, and has so many cool connections. A couple weeks ago, I was on a Zoom call with the class and Senator Tim Kaine and Senator Mark Warner. So a really cool class, and you get to meet a lot of cool people.
I would say that my favorite Batten class is probably civic leadership, which is taught by Professor Chow. It's one of the first classes you'll take. I think it's in your second semester, but it's a really interesting look into how social psychology affects the way that we conduct business and policy with one another. And it was a 3-hour class, which you would think would be very tiring to do once a week around dinner time, but she made it incredibly interesting, and there were a ton of fun activities between the classmates. So I think that was probably my favorite, and I think I learned the most from that one.
I think Amanda brought up a really good point too. Some of our Batten coursework is actually open to prospective students to take, including that Intro to Civic Leadership course. So if you're interested in Batten, maybe you want to try it before you buy it, this is definitely a great way to do it, is by taking some of those intro courses that are available to prospective students. And my final question before turning it to some of the great questions in our chat is, why did you decide to apply to Batten?
I guess I can take this one. Coming into school, into UVA, I thought I was going to be a biology major or do something along those lines. And I just kind of fell in love with the politics department and government. And as I took more classes, I realized that I was learning a lot about the problems that we have in the US, but I wasn't really learning how to solve them. And so I kind of started taking a lot of classes in the Batten School and attending info sessions. And I really realized that that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to get those skills that were going to help me facilitate policy and learn how to solve problems.
Yeah, I think going off that, like all throughout high school and even like my first like couple years here, I was like, I've always been a person who like wants to, I'm just a very helpful person. I like to see change. And, you know, obviously that kind of led me towards like the social sciences, but, you know, taking psych classes, sociology, like, nothing was really sticking. And I knew that I wanted to be able to take, you know, my personality and put it into practical change. And, you know, I learned about the Batten School, went to info sessions and things like that. And it just really stuck out to me. And I kind of just, even I won't lie, first year, I kind of didn't even understand what public policy was, but I just knew that it was like what I should be doing. So, you know, I worked hard towards, you know, kind of immersing myself in that world and applying.
Yeah, I actually came in the same boat as Amanda. I was a biochemistry major for about 3 weeks at the start of first year. Intro chemistry kind of changed that course for me. And I just kind of think I stumbled across the Batten School. In my spring semester of my first year, after finding out that intro chemistry was not the thing for me, I just kind of took a whole mishmash of courses. One in the politics department, one in the economics department, and one in the statistics department. And somehow all three of those things kind of clicked, and I realized that the Batten School might be the way to do that. I took like Abby said, I think I took some Batten classes before applying to see if it worked out for me, and I took a really great one with Professor Braithwaite, and yeah, that class solidified it for me. So.
Great. Well, we have certainly plenty of people who are looking at applying to Batten, even though they are still in the college search process. One of the top questions we've gotten is, what is the best way to prepare yourself and build a resume as a first and second year to apply and get into Batten? Obviously, very successful candidates here. They would probably have some good advice.
I was actually thinking about this earlier. I think it's important not think about like, oh, I need to necessarily do this or do that or join this certain club. But what I think really helps is to find something that you're really passionate about and you can build experience in and build leadership in. It may look, I don't know, I don't admit people, but if you stay with the club for, a year or two and, you really like show interest in it, you do a lot of events, you maybe have a leadership, position. I think that's a really good way to build your resume. It shows that, you're committed to things, you're interested in changing things, and you're just passionate about it.
Yeah, no one resume is the same. There's no cookie cutter way to get any job or to get into the Batten School or any other school or UVA in general. I think it's all about demonstrating that you're the kind of person that cares about what they're doing, and that is a leader in whatever position they are. You could be working at a summer camp over the summer and still be a leader there. You don't have to be interning on the Hill to be a leader. You don't have to have an official position in an organization to show and demonstrate leadership. So it's really, like Abby said, it's whatever you love and whatever you need to do. Some students work 20 hours a week just to afford school. That's a big part of who you are, and that should be a big part of your resume.
Yeah, I think that it's really easy at this time to get caught up in the competitiveness of the environment and comparing statistics. And even when you get to UVA and you're considering applying for Batten, that might still be in your head. And if there's one thing that I've noticed from everyone who's an undergrad, it's that everyone sort of stumbled upon Batten in their own way. There were a few people who knew when they came to UVA that that's what they were going to do and they worked towards it. But there's also a lot of kids like myself that took a while to stumble on it. And I think Batten's all about using the skills that you have to create change and do the best things you can for others. And I think as long as you're doing that, no matter in what sphere or how, you are going to be a great candidate.
I can weigh in. I'm going to put my UVA admissions hat on now instead of my Batten admissions hat, and talk a little bit about what I think is really sound advice in the way that you approach your education, your college experience. The University of Virginia is one of the strongest liberal arts programs at a public college in the country. So I think you would really miss some opportunities in some ways if you didn't take the first 2 years, which you have some time. The general education framework is designed so that you can really explore your interests widely. There are really wonderful professors. You might think coming in, as Ben did, biochem is for me, and then you might take, an environmental sciences class. No, that's kind of like biochem. Something totally unrelated to biochem. Media studies, that's something that just might like totally blow your mind. And you can shift course and pivot. So we really like to encourage students to really diversify before you specialize. Take advantage of the time. Take advantage of the fact that you will never have this time to kind of explore and try something out and fail in a really safe environment, to really start to get to know yourself before you kind of make the transition to figuring out what you want your major to be at the end of your second year.
And I think going off that, if I can say something really quick, I say besides the 2 required classes, I only took 2 Batten classes before I applied. So I know some people who aren't even in our requirements for third year because they've already taken the ones they can. But that's not how it worked out for me. And I'm doing fine. I got in, I'm on track to graduate on time. So like, don't feel pressured to like, oh my gosh, I want to do Batten. I need to take, my whole schedule needs to be Batten or else they're not going to know I want to be in. Like, you don't have to do that. I didn't and I'm just fine. So don't stress about that.
Perfect advice. And I think that answers Lauren's question. What should you be taking to get into Batten? Obviously the prereqs, but as Anne and Abby alluded to, definitely try it out.
I will say though, for the graduate program, if you are the kind of student who knows this is for me, I want to go full force, I know I want to work directly within policy, particularly if you are doing it on the accelerated track. What that is, you're applying a year early. It is helpful to see a little bit of extra quantitative coursework in your transcripts. So a lot of the curriculum is based on stats. There are a couple of stats options that are really good launching pads to start to build that foundational knowledge. So just come talk to me when you get to UVA and I can kind of walk you through some suggestions.
Popular question from our audience. What are clubs and organizations you're involved in that are associated with either policy or leadership?
So the main one for me is student council. In the accelerated program, and I suspect in the BA program as well, you take a lot of classes on kind of like developing leadership skills. And so as a committee chair on student council, there's like 17 other people on my committee. I've got a chance to like apply those skills in real time. Same thing in marching band where I was a section leader. And so leadership is kind of everywhere in everything you do. And these core Batten leadership principles extend there. On student council too, a lot of the work I do is kind of on like university policy and academic policy, fundraising, funding policy. So there's policy involved there too. And within the Batten School, I'm not involved in any of them, but I'll put a quick plug in for some of the organizations. There are the Virginia Policy Review does really great work on kind of writing about, and they also have a weekly podcast series, which is awesome, writing about policy and how it applies to our moment. There's a brand new equity collaborative focused on making the Batten School itself more equitable and our teaching of policy more equitable. Another really cool one is we have, I think it's FCG Consulting, which is a group of students at Batten that work with local NGOs and provide free policy consulting services to the NGOs. So everything you do will have some of those leadership elements and probably some of those policy elements, but there are also really heavily devoted to policy organizations as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to like not get caught up in like, oh, this is exactly like has to deal with policy and leadership, because like Ben was saying, like, you know, things can easily be intertwined, like leadership and public policy and things like that. Because like I'm in a few things that are like explicitly about that. Like my lab is literally called Applied Public Policy and Leadership. And then like I'm in third year council, things like that. But also, you know, you think if you start to think about some of the other things you do, like I work at the Career Center where I'm responsible for like checking in students as they come in for drop-in appointments and like directing them around. Like that's leadership, even though, you know, it's not explicitly stated as that. So yeah, I think it's important just not to focus on, oh, it has to be, you know, revolved around these two topics, but that you're just showing that you can like take initiative and like make change in them.
I'm not sure I have anything to add. I think Ben and Abby really hit it on the head. So I'll shoot it back to you, Courtney.
Well, perfect timing, because someone wanted to know, Abby, how do you get involved at the labs at Batten?
So I was going to mention this earlier, but I forgot. So one of the classes I took before I applied was Foundations of Behavioral Science, which the professor is my lab like manager. So I took her class and I was really interested in what she was doing. And on the last day of class, I emailed her. I was like, hey, I really enjoyed your class. Like, I would really love to work with you. So we set up an interview. She had one spot. I interviewed over the summer and then I started working with them. So it was literally as simple as just taking someone's class and just saying, hey, like, I really enjoyed this. I want to work with you more. So now I've been with her since that was second year. So it's almost a year now. So I think that's just one way. I don't really know how to, to recommend, like, if you don't know the professor or something, I'm sure you can just reach out and just say like, hey, I have like interest in this. But I think it definitely does help to have that personal connection, because like the other lab I work in, I got recommended by my professor to work in that lab too. So I think once you get in one, it's kind of easy to go through the others.
Definitely great advice. That's how I did undergrad research at my institution. Just ask. The worst they can say is, no, we don't have openings right now. And this might be a little bit more of a question for you. How does the timeline for applying to the school change with things such as AP credits? I know you alluded to applying to the Accelerated program early.
Yeah, so the credit threshold for application to the major is you have to have obtained 60 credits by the start of the program. So not by the point at which you apply, but by the point at which you begin at Batten. So some students are ahead of the curve and tend to graduate in 3 years. They can apply a year ahead of schedule and then spend their final 2 years at the Batten School. It's a full 2-year curriculum, regardless of when you begin it. The Accelerated program is similar. The credit threshold is 90 credits. So you can apply at the end of your second year to be a year ahead of schedule. And you will graduate with 2 degrees in a total of 4 years. The financial benefit of the Accelerated program is obviously you're getting 1 year of undergraduate tuition as you're finishing out that degree, and then just 1 year of graduate level tuition. So you're getting 2 years for the price of 1. That calculation does not change if you intend to go early through the program and graduate in 4 years. You're still in undergrad until your 3rd year, and then a full-time graduate student that 4th year.
And I know Ben's on that track. Do you have any wisdom to share about doing it early?
Or
words of caution?
I would say talk to Ann and Courtney. Make sure you have the logistics of it figured out. It's a big money saver, and for me that was really important. But then also talk to students in it, because the shift to grad school, even on the first year of the accelerated track, is a big shift. And I think most people applying are probably ready for it. Most people that get in, I guess, are definitely ready for it. But it's a big shift. So talk to Ann and Courtney, talk to your parents, talk to your friends too, talk to people above in the program that have done it that way. Yeah, I wouldn't have changed my decision to do it that way. But I know that some people might have thought about doing it and said, I'll wait 1 more year and do it as the 5 year. So it's really up to you, but make sure you know what you're getting into.
Wise words. I don't think any of you mentioned this on the call, but have any of you taken any environmental policy related courses? One of the attendees wants to possibly go environmental policy.
I'm not sure that we have an explicitly like environmental policy course, but I will say that Batten is very receptive to interests of students. Amanda Crombie is amazing, and she is sort of in charge of regulating your schedule and your classes, and you will meet with her pretty much every semester. And she was telling me a story recently about how there was a student that was really interested in space policy, and they made a class for it. So if they can gauge enough interest for a specific policy area, you might as well ask and see if it can turn into a class, because sometimes it might.
The other nice bit of flexibility built into the curriculum is that in your elective space, you can take classes from outside Batten, that's both at the undergraduate and graduate level, and count some of those classes towards the special topics or towards the electives. So I think for the undergrad, you can take 6 out of the 9 credits. If you can't find a policy area that you want to study within the school, you can go to environmental sciences and pull in that credit from there. I'm not sure what the threshold is for the number of elective credits that you can take elsewhere at the graduate level. Courtney does. She just gave me 6 as well. Okay, so there is some flexibility built in.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit too. Over the summer, I took a class for that is going to count as a special topic, but it was psychology of racial identity. So like it wasn't something that Batten offered, but I talked to Amanda and she was like, just send me the syllabus and you're good, you got it. So I took that this summer. So that was really nice.
I should say that's also a way that you can wrap in credits from study abroad. We don't offer any of our core curriculum in summers abroad or semesters abroad, but you can say go to Oxford, study the EU, study Brexit, and then apply that credit towards your coursework.
Also, Abby, you mentioned that you took Batten courses ahead of time. I think Amanda, you mentioned that you took Batten courses ahead of time. How do you enroll in those courses? I've never been at UVA, so I don't know how you start to plan out your schedule and enroll.
I guess I can start. When you accept your offer for UVA, you will eventually enroll in an orientation section over the summer where they will go through how you go about enrolling for classes. But long story short, it is no different to enroll for a Batten course than it is for any other course, even if you're not in the Batten major.
Yeah, I was gonna say mine, I don't really have anything like super specific. I didn't start taking any Batten classes until second year, so I had time to get like familiar with the system. And really, I kind of just took Foundations of Behavioral Science because you can take that or social psychology. So you know, one's in the Batten School, one's social psychology. So I actually ended up taking both, but I was like, let me just take the Batten class and see if I like it. And I really enjoyed it, and I did well in it. So that was just one. And then once I took one, I was like, okay, I just took a random class, and that happened to be humanitarian crisis, which ended up working for my requirements. So it's just the same as like enrolling in any other class, and you'll have time to get used to that. So I wouldn't stress about that first semester, first year.
Excellent. Switching gears, what are some cool internships that Batten students have been involved with? If you yourself or your friends have?
Yeah, I can take it. So this summer I worked with Professor Gelsdorf, who taught Abby, in the UVA Humanitarian Collaborative, which is part of one of the centers here at Batten, as well as part of other schools. And we worked on kind of humanitarian leadership and humanitarian policy in the early childhood space. I was going to work at the State Department. They canceled that, but I found a great internship with Professor Gosdorf, so I'm not too broken up about it. Some that friends have done. Everyone's kind of got canceled this year, so that's unfortunate. But a bunch of people have worked on the Hill. People have worked with the Department of Justice, with consulting groups, so like a lot of the big ones, McKinsey, Bain, Accenture, NGOs and the UN and abroad. People have worked in embassies abroad. Yeah, so many super cool internships. I can't remember them all off my top of my head. I couldn't tell you them all in this time that we have left. But there's so many cool. And I'll give a quick shout out to the career services team, and that they will go to bat for you and fight for you as hard as they can to help you get where you want. They're awesome. And so if you do end up coming to Batten, use them as much as you can.
I guess just to add to that, I worked this past summer at an NGO. I thankfully was able to do it virtually since it was a smaller group. And it was at the National Center for Health Research. So I mostly did a lot of writing. I was able to be published for the first time, which was really exciting. We did a lot of comments to the FDA about how drugs are approved and how medical devices are approved. And I had a lot of friends work in similar spaces, and it's really helpful to have the connections that Ben was talking about that Batten gives you. So the world is your oyster with internships.
Definitely. It is required for the graduate program, not required for the undergrad, but a good chunk of our undergrads will have a cool internship. I want to answer this next question. It came up, and I think it's really great. What is the culture like within Batten? Is it very collaborative? Is it competitive? How would you describe the culture?
I can go first just because unfortunately I feel like I don't have a good sense of it yet, which is kind of unfortunate. You know, being at home my first semester, I haven't gotten to meet my cohort in person. I know some people, but I definitely feel like we're kind of lacking that, group feeling. At least that's my personal experience. So, I can't really speak to that because I haven't felt the culture, but I don't think anyone's like super diehard competitive. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to work with you. I've heard good things about other classes. I have some friends who are older and they said that they've really enjoyed their cohorts. But I feel like I can't really give a good answer to that, unfortunately, which sucks because this year just really sucks.
I've been with my class for a year, and I probably don't know everybody by name, but I would say that I know a good chunk. You would think that it would be competitive because you have a lot of really driven people in one place, but I think Batten actually does a really good job of sort of sparking collaboration over competitiveness, because in every class you're doing a group project, and it's going to span from the beginning to the end of the semester. And so you get to know the people in your group really well. And much like real life, it's about the team. And then on top of that, we have a lot of just really fun events that we get to go to. We have chili cook-offs and many other things with food that are just fun, where you can socialize and it's not about school all the time. So I've really found, just in a year being on grounds with Batten, that it's very much a family.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I love the Batten culture. Free food is probably about 75% of our culture. There was a GroupMe about Batten free food. Kind of died down because no one's here, but it's a really great environment. I haven't really found it to be competitive at all. There are some aspects of competition. If you apply to like a TA position or to a research assistant position, you're probably applying against other people in your cohort. But I think no one is overly and outwardly competitive. And like Amanda said, everyone's working towards the same goal. We all want to make the world a better place. We all want to see change. And I think part of what helps keep it such a collaborative culture is that so many people have so many different interests. There's maybe one or two other people interested in the State Department at Batten. And that goes for everything else at Batten. There's maybe one or two other people that are applying to Accenture, right? And so you're not really going to be competing with them for that professional space either. In the Accelerated program as well, you're working with people who are postgraduate students, who are adults, who are 35 and have kids and have been working for 15 years. And so they bring a whole nother perspective of collaboration, like true collaboration in the workforce. And they've kind of gotten past that competitive to get that first job mindset. And so you're surrounded by people that are here because they want to make a difference, and here because they know that you have to work with other people to make that difference. And so I find it to be energizing and exciting, and you make a lot of good friends, just like Amanda said. I love it. No free food this year. That's a downer, but.
And I promise you, we have not paid them to sponsor Batten. This is truly the authentic lens and perspective from our students. Well, we have about 10 minutes left of the session, so if you do have other questions, now is your last chance to ask them. We have a couple questions in the chat that I want to be able to answer first. Does Batten, this might be more for the undergrad students, does Batten prepare students well for the LSAT and law school?
I guess that's for me. So there's no like specific prep that Batten does for tests. However, they have every resource that is going to help you do the best that you can and make yourself the most presentable applicant for those schools. And I also think that just additionally being in the school, specifically for law, you write all the time. I like to say in Batten, we write a little, but we write a lot because we're doing a lot of shorter assignments, but you're doing them very frequently. And I think that just in the year that I've been here, my writing has gotten exponentially better and I can do it a lot faster. So that's definitely an important skill going into law. You also learn a lot about social psychology and how people's minds work. So it gives you an insight into logic and how that might affect everything. So the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, the things that Amanda just alluded to include the kind of preparation in critical thinking that you get at law. At Batten, that is really good preparation for law. So you are encouraged to synthesize really complicated ideas, bring in lots of different streams of information to present a compelling point, advance an action plan. That is exactly the type of writing that you do in a brief. And thinking that you do as an attorney. The policy memo writing that she mentioned, you're not writing really long, expansive narrative papers. They are 2 pages, they are succinct, they are compelling and concise. That is also a really transferable skill set. I would say that anywhere between 7, 8 to 10% of our graduating undergraduates go right to law school. I think probably that number grows even more for those students who graduate, work a couple of years, build up some professional experience, and then transition to law school.
And our students go to some of the top law schools like UVA and Columbia. A couple of years ago, we had a student go to NYU on a full ride, which doesn't happen with law school. So certainly prepares you well for that, as Amanda mentioned. Have any of our panelists studied abroad while in Batten? Probably more from me. No, it's okay. We can still talk about it. Someone wanted to know, is it hard to go abroad and get credits transferred while at Batten? And do most students not go abroad? I think there's a lot that goes into it, and you're welcome to jump in.
Yeah, I can do a quick treatment just from a logistical standpoint. I suggested that we don't offer any of our core coursework abroad. So ultimately, many of our students do. They tend to go in their 3rd year, either the fall or the spring. The mechanics of it is that you would either have taken some of that intro level coursework prior to joining the program, so that clears space in your schedule, or you would simply shift some of those fall courses to the next fall or spring courses to the next spring, so that you can study abroad. You can pull in some elective credits in doing so, which also helps kind of keep you on track. You can also go in the summer and do the same.
Definitely. Highly encourage any study abroad while you're in college. All right, panelists. The time is now coming to a close. Poor Anna's been patiently waiting. We like to end our sessions always with this advice. Do you have any advice for prospective students who are either in the college search process, still trying to figure out their lives? What advice would you give to someone who is in your shoes, who were in your shoes actually a few years ago as they're contemplating applying to UVA and/or Batten?
I think in a more general sense, just like college, what you want to do. I think one of the biggest things is to not stress out about not knowing what you want to do. And I have to remind myself of this all the time because I'm constantly getting asked, like, what do you want to do? And I feel so bad saying I don't know, but I truly do not know. And I'm having to like accept that there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't think you need to come into college, having everything planned out. I think you just need to come in knowing kind of like what you're passionate about. And I think that's more important than having a, defined plan, just knowing like what you like, what you want to do, and just like what you think you want to do with your education in the future. You don't have to know a specific job. If you just know a general realm of what you want to do, that's better than knowing nothing. I think for applying to Batten too, like I was talking earlier about, I think we were talking about clubs or whatever. It's just finding something you're passionate in, and just kind of going off of that and getting really involved in that. And I think that's a meaningful way to make use of your time at UVA or at any college. And I think it helps you find things that you're interested in and will really lead you to, you know, a good future, regardless of if you know what you want to do or not. So my main thing is just don't stress. It's okay. You don't need to know right now.
I guess for me, my advice is a little bit cliche, but it honestly has been the biggest thing that's helped me is just learning to kind of sometimes take my brain out of the equation and just trust my gut and my heart and know what feels right. At first I didn't even want to come to UVA, but unfortunately you guys aren't able to come to grounds. But for me, it was coming here and hearing from students and everything and just trusting myself and what I knew. And I think Abby makes a really important point. You don't have to know what you want to do. We have all changed some aspect of what we thought our lives were going to be like when we got into college. And I just think it's frankly like it's about enjoying yourself and kind of falling in love with the process and this really unique time that you have in your life. So trust yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I think my piece of advice would be just to be yourself. There's a really easy pull in college admissions or in Batten admissions to try to write what you think, or I guess I'm thinking mainly like essays, but like your resume as well, to try to display what you think the person reading your application is going to want to see. And maybe that's smart, but I also think that it's obvious when you're doing that and when you're not truly showing who you are. And so just be yourself. You are doing things that like have prepared you to get into UVA, to get into Batten. And the people reading your application want to see that. They don't want to read what you think they want. They don't want to read what they think you should say, right? And that goes to another point, which is just, if you're yourself, you're going to end up where you want to be. College admissions is not always going to go the way you hoped, right? You're not going to get in everywhere. But I think if you stay true to who you are throughout the college admissions process and throughout your 4 years in college and for probably the 70 years after that, I don't know about that one yet. I still have a ways to go on that. So check back in with me in 2090 how that's going. But I think if you're true to yourself throughout the whole admissions process in your college career, things are going to turn out right. And I think that's probably what I've found to be true in my experiences, and that's what I tried to do in my application, and it worked out well. So I hope it works out well for you all too.
Some very wise words to end on. If you made it to the end of our session, thank you. I hope you learned something new, either about our school or the University of Virginia. We're here to help you from day one at UVA, but if you do have questions leading up to making that final decision, we're happy to answer those as well. Please reach out if you do have questions, but stay safe, stay healthy, and go vote. Have a good night.